Hi, welcome to Diecast QT. I'm QT, and in this video I'm going to be customising a 1968 Lesney Matchbox Superfast Series number 15 Volkswagen 1500 Saloon, also known as a Volkswagen Beetle, or in the States a Bug. So I'll start by taking the car apart. I've already drilled out the posts and cut a thread. So it comprises the casting itself, which is a little bit battered, but that's not a concern. A window piece, which wasn't too scuffed, just needed a little bit of cleaning up. The interior, which was pretty clean already, so just needed a bit of a clean with some soapy water. And the base, which in reasonable condition, but the wheels were completely shot and the axles were bent to hell. One of the wheels had melted by the looks of it. So I'll start by getting them wheels out and see how bad the axles are. The actual suspension system was largely intact. I decided to replace those wheels anyway, so I just sized up the replacement axles from my green light set, and while they did fit inside the suspension, they were a little bit on the chubby side compared with the original axles. And the replacement axles there were far too wide. And ideally I want those wheels to fit inside the wheel arches, so we're going to need to trim those down a bit. So there's the original base. The easiest way of shortening the axles was actually to cut the extra hubs off the inside of those wheels, because there's a lot of extra plastic in there, which does actually hold the axle itself. I'm planning on gluing those in anyway, so it doesn't matter. So with a nice flatter profile, that should sit snugly inside the wheel arch now. But it's off center, which I think was caused by the fact that the axle was fatter, so it was pushing the suspension spring out the way. So I opted to abandon the suspension altogether and replace it with some of my tried and tested aluminium tubing. So here I'm trying to sort of center the wheel in the housing there to see where I want that to sit. I figure I'll give the casting a bit of a bath while I'm doing that. So there it goes into the Dettol. And one decision I made early on was, because the bumpers were broken, I didn't want to have to replace an end of a bumper. So I decided to go with a sort of cowl look Beetle, which don't typically have bumpers. So here I am cutting away all that metal, leaving just the sort of bumper brackets. Trying to get them to look uniform. And then the back bumper, while there's nothing wrong with it, it wasn't in keeping with the look I was going for, so that had to go as well. just tidy up the burring on the side there and all around. And giving the base a bit of a tidy up now. That's looking a bit better. And moving on to the windows. So we start on the 800 grit sandpaper and a bit of water. Get rid of all the big scratches. Then move on to 1200. Then on to 2500. And finally 3000. Let's got rid of most of it. Get a bit of rubbing compound on there just to get out any other really tiny imperfections. Again, I'm not convinced this actually does much. I might actually forget this stage in the future. And finally the dip in Pledge Revive It. Leave that to dry. Now this is what we have got at the moment. Test fitted the wheels. That front axle needs a bit of shortening, but we're getting there. And look at the ugly back on that thing. That needs work. And there's some casting lines in the casting that needs sorting out as well. So I'm going to commit the cardinal sin of cutting off the tow hook, because what I've got planned requires it to be gone. I'll keep a little bit of the plastic there so I've still got some grip around the post. So that's what I'm planning to do with this. Fill in that bit at the back by sticking a bit of plastic behind it and then putting in some putty. In this case I'm using Milliput, 2-part, mix it in equal parts, rub it together for a few minutes and you get yourself a nice soft clay to play with, and it hardens in about 1 to 3 hours. So you get a fair bit of time to sort of fix it to the shape you want. So I take the casting, you can just see the bit of plastic I've put in there, and what I've done with the plastic is I've cut that to fit the space and coated it in PVA glue, so that once the Milliput's dried I can then take the plastic away and the PVA glue will serve as a kind of mask to stop it from sticking to it. At this point I'm not sure if that's going to work, but I go ahead with it anyway. So I'm going to shape that as much as I can, fingers around what I want, and then use a dentist pick to bring it to shape. Now the V I cut into the back there was actually perfect, but I made the decision of getting rid of it, which was a bit stupid with hindsight. So just smoothing it all out and then making a decision to cut that bit short, and that's where it all went a bit wrong. I didn't realise how wrong until much later. So that's where we're at. So I'll leave that to dry, and once it's hardened after a few hours we can come back and make some changes. So I'll start by unscrewing the base which was holding the plastic in place, and then as you can see the plastic there, which I'll just gently peel away, and it leaves behind a film of PVA glue, which was always the plan, and then that comes away as well. And I'm just going to sketch out the line that I want to make along the back here. I'll do it on the inside in case I make a mistake. And then using this is a new set of pin files I've got coated in diamond dust, which makes them quite effective for this. Just sanding away the excess on here to get to the shape I want. Using some really fine sandpaper, 3000 grit in this case I think, just to get out any of the sort of harsh scratches. Get that back a bit flat and even. As you can tell, this took a long time. So that's the finished boot as far as I was concerned at that point. So I took it to primer, and that's what it looked like, and there were some obvious issues with it, so tried sanding it down a bit, but that boot needed work, so I went back to the mini putt, fashioned a new shape for the boot, sanded that down, used a bit of water to smooth it out, and while that was hardening I used the remaining bit of excess mini putt to put those axle retaining pipes in place and test fit them while the putty was still malleable. So I masked off the headlights, which I decided to keep chrome, as well as the front bumper brackets, and then primed the base over the top of that now hardened mini putt over the axles. Now, I lost the footage of this, but I did go over it with some flat black afterwards, and then some matte clear coat. And then went about doing the casting. Now the casting's been re-primed twice because I found some more errors with the casting lines, which I filed out and did some more work smoothing out the casting as a whole. So we went with a kind of a lime pastel green I was going for. And because of the light being probably too bright, I just kept adding green and more green. But because it was so bright, I felt that it was green enough, so stopped adding green and decided that that was the colour I was going to go with. And I think even in this light it looks greener than it turned out. So that's the finished primed casting. So I'll lay down a few coats of this green. At first I'm not convinced it's even going on, because it's so close to white. But as the coats go on, it does get noticeable and more visibly green. But not that green. So with a couple more coats it still doesn't go green enough for my liking. So I decide to mix up some more. This time with the secret ingredient of blue, which should add a hint of mint is what I was aiming for. One key difference here is I'm adding white to it rather than adding it to the white, which was what I did last time. So I'm starting with a dark colour and moving towards a lighter one with this rather than the opposite. I use a bit of clear on here just to try and allow some of the values from the light green to show through. I don't know how effective that is. Adding clear paint to an opaque paint. So laying the dark green on top of the light green. So we're ready for the final reveal. I'll be interested to know what you think of this one. Ruining an old classic, potentially. I'll watch the comments.